I find it inexplicable. I don't believe that there's a good reason for not briefing the President of the United States on what clearly was a critical threat.
4 flying objects have been shot out of the sky as they headed toward America or pass over our country. And here on the ground, our southern border has been compromised again and again. What level of concern should we have? Gordon Chang is with us tonight to share his views. Gordon, welcome to Centerpoint.
Thank you, Dennis.
Gordon, tell me, have there been any forensics out on the first shoot down of what is assumed to be a balloon from China? Do we know exactly what kind of a balloon it was?
Well, the payload under the balloon, they've recovered portions of it, and they've done some of the forensics. So, for instance, we have seen parts that originated in the U.S., but they have yet to recover all of it. The seas today are calm, so they have resumed their recovery operations. And we're going to find out a lot, I believe, because eventually the American people are going to force disclosures of what's happened. So far, the Biden administration has not actually said very much, but we're going to learn a lot more, I think, because people are curious about this and certainly interested.
Sure. And let me ask you this, Gordon. Is it possible, when the forensics are done, that we're going to learn if it's a weather balloon? Could it have been a weather balloon?
The one that intruded into our airspace on January 28th was clearly not a weather balloon. The U.S. military has had a chance to look at the payload under the balloon and before it was shot down, and they made it very clear that this was for surveillance purposes. It also was maneuverable, which also indicates a spy balloon. Now, the other 3 objects that were down by the Air Force on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we just don't know what those are yet.
And tell me, it's my understanding that when the balloon was shot down, it was at approximately 58,000 feet, which would make it in civilian airspace. Is that right?
That would have been a little bit above civilian airspace because most planes, they have a ceiling of about 43,000 feet. But the other objects that were shot down were in civilian airspace.
And do you think that, why do you think that the Biden administration waited to take action on the first entry into our airspace at the beginning of this series of incidents?
The White House has reported that the president was not briefed until the 4th day of the intrusion. So that, I think, is the Pentagon's fault for the delay in taking this down. It could have been taken down over Alaska or Canada, over territory that was clearly uninhabited. But the president didn't know about this until it was either over the lower 48 states or just about to enter the lower 48.
Do you find that surprising?
I find it inexplicable. I don't believe that there's a good reason for not briefing the President of the United States on what clearly was a critical threat.
And could you tell me, just today, and you probably heard about this, China announced that they had 10 intrusions into Chinese airspace by the U.S., by U.S. balloons, and that this came over the last year. Do you have any comment on that?
That's not credible at all. It is not China's style not to say anything over an intrusion into its sovereign airspace. So we would have heard about this last year if indeed this were the case. And the other reason is that the United States is not known to have a spy balloon program of any size. So for those 2 reasons, China's explanation just is not true.
Could they have been weather balloons?
I suppose so, but then it would have been innocent. But China would have shot them down. There's no question. We would have heard about it. China is not, the Communist Party is not in any mood to brook any interference in sovereign airspace.
Well, tell me something based on your experience. Isn't it true that great nations tend to want to find out what other great nations are doing? I mean, isn't it true the U.S. spies on China, China spies on us, and this goes on all the time? That's not a new development, is it?
No, it isn't. But our reconnaissance flights are in international airspace. And what China did with the balloon that entered our airspace on January 28th is fly into the United States. And that's something that we would not do.
I want to ask you one more question about this, and then we're going to go to the southern border. From what I understand, there's 3 levels of satellites. One is a low orbit, then a medium orbit, and then the geospatial stationary orbit. Most of the spy satellites are dozens and even hundreds of miles up. Is that not true?
They're all over the place. The ones that are the highest are basically communication satellites, but the ones in low Earth orbit are the ones that are used for surveillance.
And so it's your belief that whatever was going on with that first balloon, that was for surveillance purposes.
Yes, it hovered over Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. That's where we base about a third of our Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. It then went over F.E. Warren and Minot, where the other 2/3 of our ICBMs are housed. It flew over Offutt Air Force Base, where Strategic Command is headquartered, and it flew close to Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where our B-2s are based. That can't be coincidence.
Well, you know, in the half minute we have left, let's switch now to the southern border. What do you see as the complications coming right now as a result of the Biden administration's policies with respect to the southern border?
There are so many of them, but we're seeing large increases of Chinese refugees. And mixed in with those refugees are undoubtedly Ministry of State Security agents who are certainly up to no good. This is a fascinating development. We see a lot of Chinese leaving China because of the problems there, but I'm sure that the regime is taking advantage of that situation.
Well, Gordon Chang, thank you so much for the opportunity for us to engage in this chat, and we look forward to having you back here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.